Here we are in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. This is the oldest part of the city of D.C. And this neighborhood has a very unique sense of place, which we'll talk about. Today we're talking about cultural patterns. I'm Mr. Coulter, and this is Human Geography. Our topic today is 3.3, cultural patterns. So cultural patterns help us to understand places and the cultures of those places. We can see here in Prague the cultural patterns of the architecture and the design of the place. Regional patterns of language, religion, and ethnicity contribute to a sense of place. They enhance placemaking and shape the global cultural landscape, which we talked about in our last lesson. We're going to start off with language, and this is just a brief introductory to language as we're going to talk about how they diffuse around the world. But language is classified as a system of communication through speech, a collection of sounds that a group of people understand to have the same meaning. So it is when we have letters and words that connect together and that multiple people understand in order to communicate together. That is language, one of our key terms for the year. So here are the languages of the world. You can see here that Chinese is spoken by the most people around the world as their native language. Second is Spanish, and then English is third. This is a really helpful chart because this shows us all the major languages of the world with the countries that they are spoken in. So like you can see the United States under English, or obviously China for Chinese, but it's interesting to see all of the different languages. Take a second and look at this and jot down some notes on your own of things you notice. We study language through an organization. So we have a way to flow to understand the way that languages are grouped together. So the largest grouping of languages are language families. Language families share a common ancestor for the language. The largest language family is Indo-European. That's the one English belongs to. The second largest is Sino-Tibetan, and that's what Mandarin and Chinese are a part of. Mandarin is one of the types of Chinese. We then break it up further into language branches. So you take the family and you break it into a branch of that family. Germanic is the branch that English is on, along with German. And then you take it a little bit smaller and go with language groups. So that's a specific grouping on that branch. So English is a part of West Germanic. Language then is the specific language that people speak. Like Mandarin, the version of Chinese, is the most spoken in the world. So Mandarin is the most spoken language in the world. It's important that you know that. And then dialects are when you get even more detailed about the way that people speak a language. So they have different grammar and vocabulary about specific things. So we know that the people in the United States South and British people speak the same language of English, but there are different words and phrases that we have that make them different dialects. And then when you get the most specific, you have accents. Accents are the specific way that people speak that sounds different. Even though you could be speaking the same dialect, that accent might be slightly different. So here's the Indo-European language tree. You can see the way it traces through the Indo-Iranian branch and then the Germanic and Romance branches. Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French are all Romance languages. And then we see that Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, and Persian are all on that Indo-Iranian group. And then you can get even more specific, like we see the West Germanic that English is on, or North Germanic, which has like Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish, that breaks it down even smaller. But it's really important that we understand language family is the biggest, then we have branch, then group, then language. And then when you go even smaller than language, you have dialect, and then accent is the most specific. So we're going to briefly start with English today and then get into it more as we talk about how it's diffused around the world in later topics. So if we look, we can see that the family of English is Indo-European. That is the widest out branch. Then, I'll move my head so you have a better view. Then the branch is Germanic. The group is West Germanic. I can use my face as a background. And then the language is English. So we're going in, the most specific is English of the language, and then it zooms out to group branch, and then family being the biggest, is Indo-European. English originated around 1000 CE on the island of England. It came from a combination of the Germanic tribes, the Vikings of Norway, and the French Normans. All three of those groups throw words into it in different grammar sets that created the complicated language that is English. It traces many of its words back to Latin, but it's still Germanic because the main base comes from the German languages. So we're moving on to a brief introduction of religion. Religions are the faith sets that people follow around the world. So we have two major types of religions. They're universalizing and ethnic religions. Universalizing and ethnic. Universalizing are attempting to be global and appeal to all people. So religions that are trying to spread and appeal to all people. The three major universalizing religions are Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism. Each are divided into their own branches and denominations, so specific groups within those faiths. Think about in Islam, we have Shia and Sunni Muslims, and then in Christianity, there are Protestant, Catholics, and Eastern Orthodox. And you can get even more specific, like denominations of Protestantism, like Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist. All of those are within a branch as a part of the larger Christianity. So those are universalizing. They're trying to spread. They want to be widespread and appealing to a lot of people. Ethnic religions are ones that are closely tied to the culture and the ethnic heritage of the place. A lot of the things that go with them are the physical geography of the place. And we can see that Hinduism, based out of India, is the largest ethnic religion. So it's not trying to spread, it is just the largest ethnic religion. Let's take a look at a map of where religions are around the world. So we can see here that the Western Hemisphere is predominantly Christian. It's split about majority Catholic with an almost equal number of Protestants. And then Europe also is split between Catholicism and Protestants. We see that in Eastern Europe, there's a lot of Eastern Orthodox religions. So that is a part of Christianity, Eastern Orthodox. The Greek Church is a prominent one. And then through North Africa and the Middle East, there's a lot of Islam, as well as in Indonesia. You can also see that the southern half of Africa is predominantly Christian. And then Hinduism is mostly concentrated in India. We also see different groups of Buddhism throughout Southeast Asia and different parts of East Asia. Judaism is mostly found either in Israel, the United States, and then spread over different parts of the world like Europe. Shintoism is also an important religion in Japan that is not listed on this map. So in religions, when we split them up, we know that universalizing religions typically have known origins. So they're more recent and we can trace them back to some origin. For example, Islam is founded around the life of Muhammad. The major holidays are around Muhammad, and we can trace it to real dates that are understandable because we had people writing histories out those times. We also see that there are clear patterns of diffusion in universalizing religions. We can see where they spread and how they spread. For example, Christianity spread along the Roman Empire, and then when European imperialism happened, it spread to the colonies of those European powers. We also see that in universalizing religions, the holy places and holidays are related to the life of the founder or prophet. Buddhists often travel to Bodh Gaya, which was the place of Buddha's enlightenment, where the famous tree that he sat under was. And his name was Siddhartha before he became enlightened and earned the title of Buddha. Easter is celebrated as the date of Jesus Christ's resurrection. So these things are tied to a specific person who founded the religion. You can see here one of the holy spots for Christianity. This is a Buddhist temple built around the tree where Buddha achieved enlightenment. So this is different from ethnic religions. Ethnic religions often have unknown origins. Most of them predate writing. So like Hinduism predates writing in India. It's been written down since, but we're still not 100% sure of the origins of it because it predated writing. There's often little diffusion in ethnic religions. They are very tied to the people of that place. Their intent is not to spread. So when ethnic religions spread, it's through relocation diffusion, which we'll talk about in the next topic. But relocation diffusion is when you move somewhere else and then you just continue to practice your beliefs there. And then often holy places and holidays are related to the local physical geography. So like Diwali is a festival of lights for Hindus. That is to the local time. And then the Western Wall in Jerusalem is a holy site, and it's tied to that physical place. So here we have the Western Wall in Jerusalem, which is a holy place for Jewish people. We've got Diwali, which is the festival of lights for Hindus, and that is celebrated anywhere that Hindus are. So these holy places that people celebrate, worship in, and then where they bury their dead are very important to religions. And they also alter the landscape. Religions affect the landscape through people making places of worship, religious communities that gather and live together to share common beliefs, religious toponyms, so in the way that we name places, and then how we bury our dead. That is very tied to religion. Some universalizing religions organize their territory into rigid administrative structures to be able to get their religious doctrine out. So they disseminate the religious doctrine by having this structure in place. So here are some examples of different faiths, places of worship in Metro Atlanta. So all around Atlanta, we have many different faiths. This doesn't even begin to cover all of them, but I just found 5 good examples around Atlanta to give you an idea of different types of faiths in the same community. So this is North Point Community Church. It is in Alpharetta, Georgia. It is a very large church that now has many hubs at different places around the city. And it is an evangelical Protestant church. So it's part of that sect of Christianity of Protestantism, and then it calls itself evangelical in the specific doctrine. You can see it looks very different from this synagogue in downtown Atlanta. This is right off of Peachtree Road. If you run the Peachtree Road race, you run by it after Cardiac Hill. And the Temple Synagogue is Reform Judaism. We see here, this is an Orthodox Church in Roswell, Georgia. It's St. Mary of Egypt. And it is a Coptic Orthodox Christian. So it's one of those Eastern Orthodox churches, but it's specific to the Egyptian faith. And this is an all-faith Islam mosque, so it's not specific to Sunni or Shia, but it is found in downtown Atlanta. And then this is another one. This is in North Druid Hills, Georgia, which is not quite downtown. It's in the suburbs right outside of downtown. And it's another type of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, but it is a Greek Orthodox cathedral. So we can see all of these different types of places of worship with their unique architecture and their unique styles, but they are specific to people who want to come and worship their faith there. Burial spaces are also very important sacred sites. So what we do with our dead really reflects what people believe in their faith. So depending on how they set up their graveyards, how they dispose of their dead, some cremate, some leave them out for animals to be able to continue that cycle of nature. Some bury them in coffins and then leave fancy tombstones. Whatever those things are, they are deeply tied to faith. So here we can see the comparison of a Japanese graveyard at the top, which is based on Shinto and Buddhist traditions. And then we also see at the bottom a Mexican graveyard that mixes traditional Mexican cultural practices with Catholic traditions. And so you can see there it's very colorful. There's a lot of life that is put into that graveyard, where the Shinto and Buddhists are very calm, very plain, and have those square structures that come out of the ground. So here's St. Peter's Basilica. This is the Vatican in Italy. And this is the home of the Holy Fathers, the Pope. And this is the administrative structure of the Catholic Church. We see that Catholics split up space in order to administer leadership and pass down their doctrine to different areas. This is how the United States is split up into different parishes for the church. and the different leaders among them. So you can see the headquarters of that area is found in whatever city is listed. So for Atlanta is the center for all of that southeast that's on the coast. So that is it for cultural patterns. We talked about a brief introduction of language and religion, the difference between universalizing and ethnic religions, and then also the way that we group languages. We'll get much more into how those things spread and impact people as we go through this unit. But learning about cultural patterns is just one step in our road to better understanding our world. I'm Mr. Coulter, and this was Human Geography.